there's this map that was released on the cave systems within the United States. And David Paulides made a map showing all the missing cases in the United States. And if you overlap both maps together, it's crazy because the cave systems match exactly where people are disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is going on?
Hello? Something just ran in front of us on the road. We're in the ditch. We rolled over. There's two of us. I don't know what the hell it was, but it was big. It looked like a great big dog. Standing up. Oh my God. Hello?
The U.S. Navy has finally acknowledged that videos occurring to show UFOs flying through the air are real.
Just a globe of orange light that started just doing crazy moves.
You're looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
Son of is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me. He's a big, real big person.
They're extra-dimensional beings. They are not what they claim to be.
Welcome to the EERIE Paranormal Podcast. I am your host, Miguel. If you've had any encounters or strange events happen to you in your life, or if you know anyone who has experienced some sort of strange supernatural experiences happen to them, and you would like to get a hold of me, you can do that by emailing me at EERIEParanormalTalk@gmail.com. That's EERIEParanormalTalk@gmail.com. You can also go to Facebook and like the podcast page. That's another way to get in touch with me. I always do my best to try to get back to you as soon as I can. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe and hit that post notification bell. That way you can get notifications when I release a new video. Thank you for tuning in and hope you enjoyed this chat. Now let's get into these terrifying and mind-bending experiences. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into this segment, I'd like to give out a couple shout outs, especially to Troy. Troy Tree Beanie, you said you've had some Shadow Man experiences. Go ahead and email us those experiences and maybe we can get those on the show. We would also like to give a shout out to Stone Shear, Anthony Stepowski, Papa Lugo, Thomas DeWolf, Goatman, Zero the Hero, Secret Grass Paranormal Podcast, Shaywing UV, I know I pronounced that wrong, Daniel Holt Zappel. Email me about your experience. I'd like to hear about that. Cornell Paranormal Research, Jet Swan, and Duam Kobailaus. I know I butchered that one. It's DARMKABYLARZ. I personally want to thank every single one of you for leaving a comment in the recent videos or past videos. And that's really awesome. I'm glad that there are some people that are listening because this has been very difficult for me to do, especially seeing the very low numbers of subscribers. I've got a lot on my plate. Between work, which I do work, I have a very steady schedule job that I do, and my son's baseball career, quote unquote, he's pretty serious about it, and I sacrifice a lot of my personal time for that as a single father. So, and there's no regrets. The kid's really good, and I'm a firm believer that if you really want to be good at something, you have to practice at it 24/7. And he's just a kid, so he practices as much as he can, and yeah, it goes to show. So that being said, alongside with this podcast, I am going to start developing a somewhat YouTube show or program, whatever you want to call it, that follows his baseball young career. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really involved in his baseball team. I am a coach, and alongside with that, I am like the photographer, and I video record a lot of the games. So everybody can understand that it's a full-time job when it comes to being a baseball dad, and this is something I really want to pursue. But when the subscriber numbers are really low, so it makes it really difficult for me to put this in the top of the list as far as it comes to the things I must do in the day-to-day routine. So I want to thank every single one of you guys for leaving some comments, and I hope to hear from you guys. I also want to address the fact that I did add a phone number you guys can add to the contact list. So it's 586-738-0255. It's an answering service. So if you have a story and you don't want to be on the air, you can leave your little story like a lot of other podcasts. And me and Nolan can talk about it on here. So yeah, that's where I'm at as far as this podcast goes. I would really like to put more time into this, but like I said, there's a really low number of subscribers, and I'm not knocking at all of you guys for listening and putting this into your list of things to listen to when it comes to content. So I really appreciate that. That's really awesome. But if I could get more subscribers, I could probably put more time into this, as it would be more of a serious thing. But for the time being, I'm going to do this as I can. It really is difficult to get a hold of people that really want to be on a podcast and talk about this kind of stuff. So I give props to all those big major podcasts that are capable of doing that. And I don't know, I've really been playing with the idea of actually putting some money into advertising for this, but this is more of a hobby for me. I've always been the type of person to like to collect stories from people, rather than really thinking about this as some sort of career move to do. I'm not planning on making any money off this stuff. I could probably put some merch out, but in the end, in the long run, hiring somebody to do those kinds of things for this channel really wouldn't bring any money in. It's if you order a t-shirt, it's gonna go directly to them, and nothing's gonna go towards me. So, and that's the point. I'm just doing this because I really do love talking about the crazy things that happen in this world that are put in the background, So if you want to get a hold of me, you have another avenue, and that's that phone number. I don't imagine it's gonna help the people that are out of state, as far as the United States, getting a hold of me or leaving messages, as I have friends in Australia and I've tried to get a hold of them with my regular number. It doesn't work out very well. So I will try to figure out a way to get some sort of number or some sort of answering service for that. But for the time being, that's what I got. I really appreciate everybody who's listening, and keep on listening, and subscribe, like, share. There's a YouTube page, not a YouTube page. There is a Facebook page you can like and get a hold of me that way. So, all right. So on this segment, it will be me and Nolan discussing our opinions, quote unquote opinions, on the topic of the 411, the missing 411. And let me add that there are a lot of people that mispronounce Dave Paulides. Dave Paulides. It's not Dave Pilates or Dave Pilotis. It's Dave Paulides. He's got his own YouTube channel where he talks about this topic, and he's actually venturing into the Bigfoot world. And it's not his first time. He actually did the Bigfoot stuff before he did the missing 411, which leaves to question what led him to the 411. So, yeah, here we go. Okay, the Dennis Martin missing 411 case. Story goes is Dennis Martin is an American child who disappeared on June 14th, 1969 in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee at the age of 6. The search efforts were most extensive in the park's history, involving approximately 1,400 searchers and a 56 square mile area. Dennis Martin is a 6-year-old resident of Knoxville, was visiting the Great Smoky Mountains National Park along with his father, grandfather, and older brother on Father's Day weekend in 1969. The camping trip was a family tradition for the Martins. The family hiked from Cades Cove to Russell Field and camped overnight. The next day, they hiked to Spencefield near the Appalachian Trail, where they planned to spend the night. Martin disappeared on June 14th at 16:30 while planning on surprising the adults with his brother and other children from a separate family the Martins were camping with. He was last seen by his father going behind a bush to hide, intending on surprising the adults with the other children. After not seeing him for about 5 minutes, and when all the other children had returned to the campsite, his father became concerned and began searching for him. His father ran down the trail to nearly 2 miles until he was sure he could not have gotten any further. After several hours, they sought help from the National Park Rangers. The area where Martin disappeared is marked by steep slopes and ravines. Wild animals such as copperhead snakes, bears, feral dogs, and bobcats inhabit this area. A downpour broke out shortly after Martin's disappearance, dropping 3 inches of rain in a matter of hours, which washed out trails and caused streams to flood. Temperatures on that night of June 14th dropped to nearly 50 degrees.
All right, getting into the investigation. Search efforts, including a separate search by the National Guard and Special Forces, found no trace. Heavy rains during the first day's search and heavy mist on the next days hampered efforts. Up to 1,400 people were involved in the search effort, potentially obscuring possible clues. Footprints were found in the area, but dismissed as being Martin's, and determined by park officials to have been left by a Boy Scout participating in the search. The child-sized footprints led to a stream, where they disappeared. The tracks indicated that one foot was barefoot, while the other was in an Oxford, a type of shoe that Martin was wearing, or a tennis shoe. Retired park ranger and author Dwight McCarter believes that the prints were likely belonged to Martin, as the tracks were not part of a group and none of the Boy Scouts were searching while barefoot. A shoe and sock were also found. By June 22nd, 56 square miles of ground had been covered. More than 1,000 searchers continued to look until June 26th, when the search was cut back. The search was abandoned on June 29th after the last search. The search was officially closed down on September 14th of 1969. As of 2021, it was the largest search in the history of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Dennis's father offered $5,000 reward for information. Psychics, including Gene Dixon, offered clues, but nothing was found. A few years after, a ginseng hunter claimed to have discovered the scattered skeletal remains of a small child in Big Hollow, Vermont. He kept the find to himself until 1985 because of the fear that he would be prosecuted for the illegal ginseng. A subsequent search turned up nothing. The unsuccessful search for Martin led by the National Park Service to review and amend its policies on searches for missing people. It was aliens, man. It was aliens for sure.
There's a lot of people that believe it was aliens.
Yeah. It's a big theory.
There's some things that David Paulides wrote in his book that he got, because he did an extensive investigation on this case.
Right, yeah.
He even went back to talk to the dad, the Martin dad, along, years way after, his dad had already accepted the fact that his son was gone,
Right.
There was a lot of weird things that happened that don't make sense. For one, the special forces got involved, right? And that's one thing that if you can talk to any military person, special forces don't get involved in missing people cases.
It's normally just the National Guard and the National Forest Service, right?
Well, the FBI can sometimes investigate missing people.
Right.
Why was the military involved? Okay. Now, the other thing was that Paulides found out that the Martin dad wanted to get with the special forces team and help them out with the searchers they had, and these guys were like, no, we're doing this on our own. They weren't allowed to bring anybody else inside their search. Yeah, which is weird. For one, you got military there, which isn't supposed to happen, and two, they're not accepting help. It's like they're on their own little mission.
Yeah, it's like they have the side little thing going on.
What's going on?
They don't want anybody to know about it.
Okay, so now the other strange thing is that I believe it was 5 miles away from where he disappeared. There was a family there at the park that was doing some bear sightseeing. Okay, so they were called the Key family.
Yeah.
Right. So the Key family came into the park. They asked one of the rangers, "Where's the most likely place we can see a bear?"
While they were searching for the kid,
they had no idea that the kid disappeared, because this is kind of like happening
as
it happened.
Okay,
As he disappeared, this family was coming into a separate part of the park.
Got you.
Okay, so these people are walking down a trail and they see what the little kid's like, "Look, Dad, there's a bear right there," and the dad's like, "I don't think that's a bear. That looks like a person. Bears don't walk on their hind legs, and if they do, they certainly don't." Because what they were seeing was somebody very large and dark,
right,
walking on 2 feet, but like trying to be elusive and hide behind trees. And the little kid noticed that it looks like it has something on its shoulders. Like
I've heard
like
this.
a sack or something. But then they heard some sort of weird, crazy sound, like a scream, an enormous scream
from that thing.
From that general direction. And I think that's what originally caught the kid's attention when he looked and he saw what he thought was a bear.
Right. Yeah.
So then that was reported to a park ranger, right? And the family later on in the day went home and they turned on the television and saw that there was a kid that went disappeared.
Missing, yeah.
Yeah, he went missing. So the dad kind of figured, he's like, I think maybe we need to tell somebody what we saw, because
it could be linked.
It could be linked. So apparently the Key family's dad went in and reported to the park rangers saying, "Hey, this happened so and so." And the weird thing was that they were transferred to an FBI agent, right?
Wait, those guys were the family?
The dad was, and then the FBI guy's like, "Oh," he's like, and the dad said, "I can go to the park and meet you and show you exactly where we saw this," right? The guy on the phone tells him, "No, how about we meet somewhere and we talk about this? You can tell us." And the dad was confused. He's like, "Well, wouldn't you rather have me on the premises of the area that this happened?" And he's like, "No, we don't want to create more
tension."
Yeah, it's just all kinds of weird things happening already. They don't want to create any more drama. So then,
a little weird.
It is weird because that was never reported to Dennis Martin's dad. David Paulides, when he went out to go talk to him, the guy didn't want to talk about it no more, because can you imagine how many reporters he probably had coming to his house?
God, yeah.
And he probably already let it go. So Paulides went out there trying to get some. He wanted to really put some investigation into it.
Yeah.
And he brought up the fact that the family called the Key family, what they witnessed, and he had no clue about it. He said the FBI agent that was involved with the case, that was supposed to be giving him up-to-date information, didn't tell him anything about that. And another weird thing was that lead investigator for the FBI ended up killing himself.
How long after?
not that long after. And weird, huh?
Very
This is all in Dave Pilatus' book.
Yeah.
That was probably
Missing 411.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was the Eastern or Western one, but that was the one case that when I heard that, I became obsessed with the topic, and it just, the more and more you listen to cases that are similar to that, the
There's
crazier
so many.
and the weirder things get, and people,
Dude.
Okay, theories, aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can snicker about it, but yeah,
It's aliens.
it could be aliens.
It's aliens for sure.
So other people think that it could be some sort of giant bird that came down and swooped down, grabbed the kid, and took him away.
That's weird. That's a weird theory.
It can't be animals because there was no evidence of any blood. Animals are going to rip something apart.
Yep.
There's going to be clothes. They didn't find anything.
And their homes are usually nearby if there was an attack, and searchers would find a den
Right.
or find some sort of
Right.
clue.
Something.
If it was an animal, it would be nearby.
Okay, now there were some things that in Pilatus's book were referenced that weren't in this. What we were reading off was the
Wiki.
The wiki.
Yeah.
And there was search and rescue dogs, right?
Yep.
That it wasn't covered in here. Apparently, these dogs couldn't pick up a scent,
Yeah.
and that's what
Like he disappeared right from
That's
his spot
right.
where he was last seen.
right.
Which is weird because most cases that you look at for missing 411 like this, exact same thing. It seems like somebody was taken from where they were and just disappeared from that exact spot. Dogs can't pick up a trace of scent. There's no trail. The last place somebody saw them was a couple of feet away, and they just disappeared.
Right.
And a lot of times they're found miles and miles away. A lot of times they're not found at all.
If they're found.
Yeah.
So, another thing that Pilatus wrote in his book was that when he met up with Dennis's dad, he told him about what the Key family saw, right? And I don't want to say this because I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I know it happened. I want to say that the Dennis Martin dad called the FBI that was lead in charge and asked them about the situation with the Key family, and the guy said, well, we didn't tell you that because we felt that it had nothing to do with it because it was so far away. So Pilatus asked Dennis Martin's dad, he's like, why don't we go down there and we walk it? We walk the distance and we see whether or not it could have happened. And they walked that 5 miles, and they're like, yeah, within the time frame that the Key family saw the person, the thing, the it, and when Dennis disappeared was totally within the time frame that it could have happened.
And that's where you get into another theory is there government agencies that are in on these disappearances?
Well, the thing that David Pilatus was pulled into, or the reason why he was pulled into researching these cases, was because he found out that the National Parks Rangers weren't keeping data or information on people going missing.
Right, yeah.
Because he was pursuing with FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, to get all information on these cases of missing people, and they weren't giving it to him. They wanted to. They said that if you want him, you got to pay, a large amount of money. That they made it impossible for him to get
Millions of dollars, literally, to get the information.
The case is insane, and it's very, very conspiratorial when it comes to the government end of the park, and then. So yeah, he tried to take it to court. He tried, and they gave him some information, but a lot of that stuff was redacted. A lot of the main information was all blacked out and this and that. And I mean, that just makes it even more like suspicious when it comes to any of this. So it's just like, what's happening?
And then when you look into like the government bases that are around these areas, man, there's so many government bases around these national parks.
There are 128 DUMBs, deep underground military bases, that are known of. And, when trillions of dollars disappear from the Pentagon, where do you think it's going? Yeah. Whose money is that?
Well,
that's taxpayers' money, right?
Yeah, not
more
anymore.
likely, right? Okay, so are we, as taxpayers that have paid for these underground military bases, are we allowed on them if something's catastrophic killing meteor was to come? Can we go down there too?
No.
Hell no. They probably got a whole new society down there. So, anyways, that's going into a different direction for a
Yeah.
podcast. So let's go back into the missing. So there's this map that was released on the cave systems within the United States, and David Paulides made a map showing all the missing cases in the United States. And if you overlap both maps together, it's crazy because the cave systems match exactly where people are disappearing. What the hell is going on?
And then for the underground military bases that we know about, a lot of them are real close to those cave systems.
What's going on here, man?
You know, it could be some sort of government overreach or some sort of government kidnappings for experiments, or like you were saying, other conspiracy theories like aliens, which I think is kind of aliens, or it could be something else that we don't even know about.
One of them, the people who listen to this, there's a lot of them. The number one thing besides aliens is Sasquatch, Dogman, some sort of cryptid creature going out there snatching people. Now, when people go completely missing without a trace, and even a bloodhound can't sniff out a scent, what is this saying? Now are we dealing with interdimensional beings coming in and just plucking people out of existence? Now we start getting into that. We're going to break away from the Dennis Martin case. Now we've talked about, remember that case where this little boy went missing and he stayed still in the spot where he was at, right? And he seen searchers coming in and out of this trail, and he wasn't moving, and he was yelling out for help, right? Nobody came to help him. And then all of a sudden one day,
it was like 3 days later.
Yeah, he reappeared on this trail as hikers were coming back in or coming back out from search, and they were like, "Oh my God, he's right where he
disappeared.
Who was last seen."
Yeah.
And when they asked him, "Where did you go?" he's like, "I didn't move. I seen everybody walking around, and I was screaming for help, but nobody was helping me."
Yeah.
Did this kid step out of our existence?
Step into a little bubble reality.
It's just like, what's happening here? Is this what's happening to people?
I don't know. I think it could be multiple different things. I think it could be a bunch of different things.
I think that it's a complete, just random toss of the dice of what it could be.
You know, when you look into what's that ranch, you know which one I'm talking about.
Skinwalker
Ranch.
Oh, yeah.
People say they see orbs. They say they see aliens. They say they see Bigfoots.
Everything and anything that is strange and unusual has happened on that ranch.
Yeah, I think that these national parks are ancient, and that a lot of this paranormal and conspiracy towards these national parks, I think a lot of it is a lot of different things concentrated in these national parks.
Okay, so what if what we're considering as paranormal really is just normal?
Or normal, yeah.
By nature. There was, you were talking about Skinwalker Ranch, there was people who seen creatures trying to, pop into our existence through, a wormhole.
Yeah,
That's
up in the
crazy.
sky, and the guy was watching it.
There was a portal that opened up, and this ship came out. This orb. It's weird because they have everything and anything going on there. I mean, they've had lizard type creatures. They've had hairy biped creatures. They've had alien type entities. They had UFOs, orbs. There was one of the biggest ones was this big giant wolf that showed up on the property.
Invincible.
And
they shot it.
Yeah, well, it came up like it was a pet of theirs, and it was real friendly with the family. But as soon as this little calf stuck its head out of the fence, this thing latched onto it.
Yeah.
And they said it was like the size of, of a small cat, like a horse. Dogs, way bigger than a normal dog. It was almost like it was what do you call the ancient wolf?
Demi-wolf? A dire wolf?
A dire wolf. They said it was like a dire wolf. So when you brought that up, the dad freaked out when this wolf grabbed a hold of the calf, sent his son to go grab a gun, and they shot the thing point blank and didn't do anything.
And just kind of looked at him and
looked at
away.
them, it finally let the calf go, but they said that they kept firing and the chunks of flesh were coming off and this thing wasn't being phased.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of nonchalantly walked away, and they looked at the flesh on the ground and it was rotting. It was instantly rotting. So they were like, okay, so they went after it. They were following the trails into this field, right? And they just disappeared. The thing was gone, and the tracks just disappeared.
Dude, there's so many stories around that that single ranch. And talk about another conspiracy or another story where the military intervened.
Yep. Bob Bigelow, the owner of Boeing, is a big fan of the paranormal. So he heard about this and he bought the ranch. But he wanted to keep the same guy that originally owned it to stay on there and tend to the property, right?
Yep.
So he bought the ranch and he brought in NIDS. I think that's what it was called. The National Institute of I can't remember. It's some sort of sciences. And he brought all these guys in there and all this equipment and everything to try to, capture some of this stuff. And it seems like whatever it was messing with them. As soon as something would happen, the cameras would go out. It was messing with the people there.
Yeah.
Before they could get any sort of visual or evidence or anything, it was gone.
I could be wrong, but isn't it that you can't go there anymore? That the military kind of locked it down?
Yeah, it's been on lockdown. But last I heard, Bigelow sold it. He got rid of it because he
sold it to the government.
I don't know if he sold it to the government or not. But
He sold it.
I know he doesn't own it no more.
Yeah.
So you start getting into these cases of people going missing in the weirdest ways, and we can get into some of the people that were actually found in some sort of way. Some people were found. There was a little girl that was found. There's no way she could have survived on her own 3 nights in a freezing forest by herself. There was a little kid who survived 3 days and claimed that a bear took him in and took care of him
and talked to him
and nurtured him.
Yeah.
And from what I remember hearing, there's no possible way because at that time bears are hibernating.
Yeah.
And if one came out of hibernation, would be a bad thing because it's going to be hungry. What do you think it's going to do with a toddler? This toddler was like 3 years old, I think.
Yeah.
And when they asked, when he was found, which was incredible in itself, that a toddler survived 3 nights in the freezing forest by itself. He was claiming that a bear saved him and
took care of him.
Took care of him. The kid was healthy. He didn't look,
They said he was fed.
malnourished or anything. Yeah, he was fed.
Yeah.
Full belly. Nothing, no scratches, no nothing. That's crazy.
It's so ridiculous. So many different cases. A lot of times they end up finding body parts,
right,
and then find nothing else, right. No body.
Or no, there's been some situations where clothes was found, but
clothes was found
in the weirdest way.
Yeah, folded next to a little river.
Folded up. One of them was they found a little piece of ankle bone, and it was like, imagine a person standing and then them just disappearing, and the pants were like completely just
drop down
to the shoes, but with a little piece of bone in the sock. It's like, what happened?
They found a hand inside of a tree.
Yeah, they found a 68-year-old man's cane up in a tree that barely had any.
Yeah. There's no way it could get up there.
The stranger ones are like when you hear about a toddler that disappeared and they find him 50 miles down somewhere else off of where he disappeared, up in like 500-foot mountain.
In a cliff. Cliff crevice. They need equipment to get up there.
Right, and even with the equipment, it's almost impossible for them. It's just like, whoa, wow.
Like, how?
There was one where there was a child who disappeared, and somebody saw the child later on a cliff. Like, he was standing over the cliff yelling, and then like an arm grabbed him from jumping off the cliff. And then he was found.
He was found?
Little bones and pieces.
Oh, that's...
Yeah. in an area crammed between some boulders. Like,
right.
Like, that's not weird?
That's so weird.
For one, a child is not going to go up a mountain if they're lost. They're going to try to go, the shortest path.
Right.
Not the hardest way to, get some help.
There was one case where a guy went out camping, super into the woods, right? He was a guy who went hunting all the time. He knew his safety. He knew his stuff. And he was in contact with his buddy for 3 days. On the 4th day, his buddy was supposed to meet him out there. His buddy gets out there, and what do they find? They don't find him. They can't find him at all. He's completely disappeared. All his stuff seems perfectly intact, and like nobody who came to rob him, nothing like that. There was no trace of him. He disappeared, and they never found him.
Was this the one that was hunting for like a mountain goat?
I don't know what he was hunting for something.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I remember hearing that when he went. He came back to his campground, but he had to go back up to the mountain because he had to go get the body of the goat. He went to go drop his stuff off, or maybe it was vice versa. And yeah, he disappeared without a trace.
Yeah, that was weird. He left like all his weapons and stuff on the ground, nice and neat. Like, and he's one of these guys who's a hunter. He knows you never leave your campsite without a weapon.
That, I believe, was one of David Paulides' investigations he put into Missing 401, the hunters.
Right, yeah.
Because that was another one where experienced hunters for many, many years have gone missing. And
which is almost, that's more bizarre.
Yeah, that's why he was writing the book on those topics, because it's just like you have hunters that regularly every year do the same thing to the point where they know the certain part of the area they hunt like the back of their hands.
Yeah.
How can they disappear?
Right. And not just disappear, but never be found. And
they're armed, so it's not like somebody's going to come up to them and just start messing with them. And you got somebody who's heavily armed to go hunting and knows how to use it.
And then these hunters sometimes take off their clothes and fold them and put them in a pile nice and neat, and then are never found.
There was a case that I remember, or maybe it was just a story of somebody that survived and explained what happened to them. There was two guys that were out in the forest, and one of them woke up in the middle of the night and started just walking into the trail, and his friend woke up coming after him, and as his friend is following him behind him, the guy's taking his clothes off as he's walking into the woods. And his friend grabs him and he shakes him. He's like, hey, what are you doing? And his friend kind of like snapped. He was like in a trance. He's like, where am I?
Oh,
he's like,
wow.
Dude, you just got out of your tent and you're walking down the trail in the dark, taking your clothes off. He's like, I don't know. I just started feeling hot. And warm. But there's a lot of people that say that when people suffer hypothermia, that's another thing where you start getting overheated. Or
you take off your clothes.
Your body starts feeling overheated.
Yeah, your brain kind of shuts down.
When some of these people are found in a strange situation, there's a lot of people that are found floating in small amounts of water.
Yeah.
Okay, so like one was the person was completely nude.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. But their clothes was folded up over towards the dry area on a log. Mm-hmm. They were completely nude.
Feet away.
Yeah, feet away from where searchers were coming in and out of, right? So like 3 days later, they find the person right where everybody's been walking the past 3 days searching, in a small pool of water, dead, naked, but with perfectly clean socks.
Yeah, and it's only like 3 inches of water.
How do you keep your socks perfectly clean? If you're taking your shoes off and you're walking in the dirt, how do you keep them perfectly clean?
You got to take off your socks and carry them.
And then put them on there after you die?
Yeah,
put them back on?
I guess.
How does that work?
Or have somebody else put them on.
There was a case here that happened in Michigan, and I don't want to get too far into. I think I know somebody who was related to the lady, but yeah, it was a situation where they were out in a cabin, and the boyfriend left. He had to go back in town. She stayed, and weird things happened. She called and left a message, I think, to the police, or maybe somebody's answering machine, saying that there's somebody outside and they're trying to get her. And when the investigation happened, she disappeared. They couldn't find her. There was bullet holes in the shooting outwards, like she was shooting at somebody or something outside.
Yeah.
And you would think that you would see more bullet holes, as if somebody outside was trying to kidnap her, they'd be shooting back inside. There was only bullet holes going one way. They found her phone and her flip-flops on the top of the roof of the cabin, and they couldn't find her.
That's so weird.
Okay, so then a few days later, they found her right near the cabin in a little pool of water. Same way.
So she disappeared. They looked around.
Yep.
She appeared.
She appeared right where all the searchers were coming in and out of to start the search.
That's weird. You hear about that a lot too, where searchers will search an area and right where the person disappeared, like we were saying, they just appear.
It's like they're meant to be found after a certain time.
Yeah.
Now, there was somebody who was interviewed claiming to be like a psychic or somebody who can channel this and that. And she said that there was I can't remember the case, but there was a case where, you know, this guy was found and he was dead. They don't know the cause of death. There was no signs of anything. And the same situation where he disappeared and then they found him
where he disappeared,
not too far from where he disappeared.
Right.
And in the same situation,
days later,
she says that what's happening is soul harvesting. It's not like these people are being killed. It's almost like their energy source, their life source is being taken from them, and that's what's happening.
Oh man. Remind me, did you hear of the story of the 6 hikers up on the mountain and only one of them survived?
Is that the Dunlop Pass?
Yeah. I think that's the
Russia,
one.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to do a podcast on that alone because it's got a
dude, it's so bizarre.
There's little things, there's little trinkets here and there that resemble the missing 401 stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right up the same alley.
We can talk about, you know, the Dulce base has things that wrap around to that too. You know, people being experimented on, and that's what people are claiming. And there was an underground war down there. I mean, I want to get into that one too.
That one's out there.
You know, and you start thinking about, what if it is cryptids? What if it is alien? What if it's spirits? What if it's interdimensional? What if it's extra dimensional? What if it's military? I can guarantee military is probably involved in there too. You know, they need people to experiment on.
They know something more than we do.
What if it's cults? You know, for sacrificial.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to please their
wild
demon
men
gods.
who are living out in the national forest.
Wild men / Bigfoot, Dogman, Rake. I mean, dude, we really don't know much about what goes on in the forest. What if it's the Fae? What if all this is the Fae? And we're just categorizing each individual little thing as something different, but it's all the Fae.
I don't know, man.
What if the Fae is Mother Nature? What if Mother Nature is doing this? What, you know, it just, we should start calling these segments "What If," because you can just ask that question all day long when it comes to anything that's just weird and strange.
But it's weird that a lot of these disappearances are so bizarre, and then you have a category of, oh, all these people folded their clothes and then are drowned in 3 inches of water. And then you have another category of, oh, these people just disappeared exactly where they were. And then you have another category of people like, oh, this guy's insides were turned into Swiss cheese, and we have no idea how it happened.
Right.
Like, there's categories, and so bizarre. So bizarre.
Well, let's take the whole finding the body in a little bit of water thing. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In some of these cases, there's no water in the lungs.
Right.
So they weren't drowned.
Or some of them were, but in only like an inch of water.
Right.
And it's like, how do you drown yourself in an inch of water?
Well,
you couldn't even try.
Well, it makes sense. They drown that way. But the ones that don't have water in their lungs, is like they were placed there.
Right.
They didn't fall in and drown. They were placed there after they were already dead.
Or the autopsy shows that there's water in their lungs, but only after they died.
I don't know. I don't know if that's... I don't know. It's just... Man, it just gets more and more bizarre.
It's so bizarre. Oh.
Hold on. Okay, so one of the stories I was searching for, I can't seem to remember the lady's name, but at the end of one of David Paulides' 411 Hunters books, he's got 2 of them, I believe. There's a story of a female hunter. She's doing early morning hunting. She's in her tree stand, and she is married to, I believe, some sort of bigwig for NASA, and they're out in the country, and she's waiting for deer, right? I guess that's what hunters do. I don't hunt, so. And then she hears something in a tree not too far from her, like within her scope of vision.
Right.
And she makes out what she thinks is some sort of person in camouflage in a tree, and she's like, well, what the heck? So I think she she points her gun to it and kind of looks through the scope to check it out, and she says what she sees is what seems to be a large man reaching out to a tree, grabbing the tree with one arm, and then pulling itself over to the other tree. And it did this several times to different trees, and I guess this is how it's getting around. And she said she freaked out. It gets stranger from there because she said when this thing it made some sort of weird noise. It didn't sound human.
Right.
It sounded otherworldly. And she was paralyzed with fear, didn't move until this thing was gone. She came down from the tree stand, went home, talked to her husband about it. Well, apparently something happened with her phone. She ended up with a picture. And on the phone, there was a picture of whatever that was, but it was very zoomed in. So you see what seems to be like tree, like a hole in the canopy of the trees, and the sunlight's breaking through. And in front of that is like the shoulder of a hairy person with long hair on the shoulder. And it gets even stranger because not too far, like maybe a mile away from where she was at, her son, I believe, was in the school band, and they were practicing on the football field, and the entire field of people stopped because there was some sort of strange craft floating around in the sky. Yeah, you can look it up. It's actually part of the movie he made, Missing 411 The Hunters.
Wait, at the same time that this weird...
Around the same time, because she brought it up, and then apparently that happened because I guess her son had a story to tell, and she had a story to tell, and it happened around the same timeline.
That's so weird.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's almost like two different paranormal activities happened.
But they can be linked.
Exactly. Like at the same time. That's so weird. It's like the veil between our world and the different world almost thinned for a minute in a specific area.
But at this point, you have one thing trying to be sneaky,
yeah,
and the other thing just being open, plain as day. It's like, look at me here. Don't pay attention over here.
Right.
So now, are we talking about something plucking people from the ground into the trees? Is it UFO related? Is it a creature? Is it, the rabbit hole? The rabbit hole splits into different ways on this one.
Yes, it definitely does. There's so many different ways people disappear and so many different ways they find bodies.
It's crazy.
Some people are perfectly intact. Other people, they only find pieces of. Other people, they find the internal organs have been taken out, put holes in, disappear completely.
Some people, they just find the crown of a skull.
Yeah. Find 50 miles away a little kid 50 miles away up a hill, up a cliff.
It's scary. I get very nervous when it comes to my son or hearing people going camping and stuff. I mean, I love camping, dude.
I do too.
But reading these books and hearing about the topic and watching the videos really starts freaking me out from even going out in the woods anymore. I don't camp in the woods. I camp in a very populated area where it's fenced off and everybody, you have campers right next to you at every side. So, and even then, it makes me nervous.
Wuss.
Yeah. No. Yeah, watch some of this stuff. Really read those books.
I've been out in the woods camping and heard some stuff. Yeah.
Read these books in their full detail and tell me that doesn't make
I
you
have.
worried.
I've read some stories. It is pretty crazy. I've read some insane stories. That one about the people up in the Russian mountain that we're going to do a podcast on eventually, that one freaked me out.
That's creepy.
That is so creepy.
I think that one was for sure aliens.
I have no idea. Some sort of spirit or aliens.
Or maybe it's some sort of evil nature spirit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's one and the same.
I don't know.
You can laugh all you want, but nobody really knows.
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea.
It's concerning, dude.
Yeah.
It's concerning. And a lot of this stuff is still happening, and it probably even more.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird things happening even more now. And it's almost like the world is in complete, total chaos. And I know we've mentioned it before. I brought it up. It just seems like maybe these things feed on that, and it's
chaos.
just attracting everything. Everything's like, oh my God, it's a buffet over here. These people are nuts, and we love it.
I don't know. Almost seems like something's coming.
Well, if everything's based on energy, then yeah, this is totally a really good time to come and feed on some negativity, because yeah, this planet's going down a
dark path.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Everybody's at each other's throats, man.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's where we're gonna cut off this podcast and
just kind of cover a little bit of the missing 411.
It's always been a topic that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk about the Dennis Martin case for a long time. It's been done many, many times, but I just wanted to do it for us. It's to me, that's the one that really, really makes me want to dig into. Well, that's what really made me want to dig into more of this topic. Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in finding out more about it, just type in missing 411, and David Paulides is really the big guy that kind of got this investigations on these old missing people reports kind of out there, you know, and he's been doing a lot of work into that, and he's got a lot of people bashing him, but it's easy to bash somebody just, you know, from listening to certain things and not reading the books.
Right,
you know?
yeah.
The guy's putting in a lot of time in his life and into what his research. The guy used to be a police officer, so.
And he has corroborating evidence.
Oh yeah.
Like a ton of evidence.
He backs up his
claims.
His claims with a lot of evidence, so.
For sure.
Go give those a listen to. He's got some videos out there, and like, share, and subscribe.
Cool.
We'll see you next time.
Later.
I'd like to thank you once more for listening, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget that you can get a hold of me at EERIEParanormalTalk@gmail.com. That's EERIEParanormalTalk@gmail.com. You can also leave a message at 586-738-0255. And once again, thanks a lot for listening, and stay tuned. We'll see you next time.